along with the new Top Fuel Roll Cage Shield, will have quite an effect on the second half of the season. The crew chief that nails the right combination will have the inside track to the championship. ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, presents exclusive coverage of the $50 million NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. Today, we're in the foothills of the Rockies for final eliminations of the 25th running of the Mopar Mile High Nationals from Bandimere Speedway in Denver, Colorado. And hello again, everybody. Marty Reed here with you as you can see the crews getting ready for final eliminations, and we have perfect weather conditions. It's going to get on the warm side, however, so it will be another challenge for the crew chiefs. We're so glad you're able to be with us. And of course, this is the first race back after the tragic crash that took the life of Darrell Russell just a few weeks ago in St. Louis. And while everybody in the NHRA tries to regroup, so does Joe Amato's race team. He made the announcement yesterday that they will return to competition at Brainerd in Minnesota in August. Now, last Wednesday, Mike Dunn had a chance to sit down with Joe, and he talked about the thought process that went into that decision.
I guess I'm hooked on the sport, and you know, the easiest thing would be to walk away, but I don't want to walk away like this. I want to walk away under my terms and conditions and not somebody else's. That, you know, the plan, God had a plan for Darrell, I guess, when he sent him to me to, and maybe we were lucky that he won, and we won the races he did. And it's like the big picture. Sometimes we stand back and we don't know what was on his mind and why he did what he did, but I guess he let him win what he let him win, and he had his fun doing it. And now, you know, I was blessed that I was able to do that with him, and now if I can take some other young man or somebody already, you know, experienced and let them go forward and live their dream and all, and I can be part of it, and I get special pleasure out of that. The race has been good to me, and if I can give some back that way and just move forward, I think, you know, whether it's the team or letting a guy like Wayne become an expert crew chief and develop, and you know, that's gives you good. It feels like you're giving something back to something that you've been lucky at, and it's worked good for you, and I think I want to do that.
And we'll hear more from Joe Amato and crew chief Wayne Dupuy a little bit later in the broadcast. Want to bring in now 22-time national event winner Mike Dunn. And yesterday on our qualifying show, you admitted, as many of us thought, that Joe might not return, and you were a bit surprised too.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit surprised. I mean, he really doesn't have anything to prove. He doesn't, you know, it's not his business. It's not what he makes money doing it. In fact, he spends a lot of his own money because he loves the sport so much. But that's the reason he wants to get back in, because of the love of the sport. And I think he's right. I think that's what Darrell would have wanted anyway. I know if I was in that situation, I mean, I always want, if something happened to me, I would want everybody that I love to carry on.
Well, we do know one driver's name who is on the possible list to replace Darrell in the cockpit, and that is Morgan Lucas. I ran into his father, Forrest Lucas, the head of Lucas Oil, last week, and he confirmed that they had discussions. As of now, that's all we know. We'll keep you posted. Let's turn our attention now to the race today, and let's bring you the Top Fuel Ladder, brought to you by Lucas Oil, and show you the matchups. Brandon Bernstein, remember the last 2 times he was number 1? He lost. He's remembering it as well, and he doesn't want to have it happen today. Doug Coletta, Doug Herbert, Scott Coletta. They have lane choice as well on one side. Then it's Larry Dixon, John Smith, David Grubbick, and Corey McLenithan with the lane choice over on the other side. And you heard us mention the new rules. Let's go a little deeper. Top Fuel and Funny Car have a new rear tire. It's an evolution of the old 1430. It's labeled the 2300. Rear minimum tire pressure has to be 7 pounds per square inch in Top Fuel, 6.5 in Funny Car. And in Top Fuel, it is now mandatory for roll cage shielding. But as we found out yesterday, we've already seen some cause and effect.
Well, that's right, Marty. The biggest adjustment is going to be that rear tire. They've actually changed the compound, which will allow the tire to slip a little bit more in the middle of the racetrack. Also, the construction isn't going to allow the tire to grow as much, which is going to shorten the gear ratio. Both of those things should theoretically slow the cars down in the middle of the course. Now, the roll cage shielding has actually caused some problems, too, that we see right there. A lot of the air has been getting past there and buffeting the back of the driver's helmets. As a result, they've actually had to raise the windshields up to try to get that air to go up over the top of the roll cage to try to alleviate that.
And we'll show you more on that when Tony Schumacher comes to the line. Right now, you're looking at Scott Wise up against Doug Coletta. Coletta, the first time in 9 years that a Coletta family members had the points lead. Here we go. And Doug, you saw him dropping some cylinders down course. 4.99 seconds later, 287 miles an hour, he takes the first round win.
Watch Doug Coletta. Yesterday he had to backpedal this car. I couldn't tell if he had to do it this time, but he did have some pretty slow numbers early. It looked like the car was just soft, and right about here, you're going to see a lot of cylinders start to go out as they just weren't applying the clutch. Had at least one or two over there on the right-hand side, but he got the win.
Well, and we have a chance to show you the weather conditions because that's a big factor. Track temperature, look at it, 121. And look at these numbers. We don't see this anywhere else.
I mean, low humidity, 34%, but look at the density altitude right there. That's the corrected altitude when you factor in the temperature, humidity, moisture in the air. Almost 9,000 feet above sea level is what these engines feel like they're running in.
And that's equivalent to the starting line of the Pikes Peak hill climb, to give you an idea. Tony Schumacher, he had a big problem yesterday. Notice they have holes now drilled in this titanium. He had to pedal the car, and his leg literally came forward. He couldn't get it back. He was leaning forward in the car. Parker, you've got more.
Marty, you can't change one thing on these cars without affecting something else. Most of the top fuel cars have doubled the height of the windscreen, but now what's happening, the air is not going into the engine properly, and the problem is variable boost.
Pedal fest. Who's going to get to the line first? Tony Schumacher in the army of one, and look at Don. He is breathing a sigh of relief.
I'll tell you, Tony Schumacher's been doing his job this year when he's been smoking the tires. He's won most of the races where it's been a backpedaling contest. He just knows how to get that car to the finish line under power. That's the key. You can't over-rev these engines, especially up here on the mountain. It'll throw the bell off before it gets to the finish line. John Smith, he's been running good, but look, the cylinder out, as soon as he hit the throttle, then it goes into tire shake, into tire smoke. He does the same thing, tries to get the car to recover. But at that situation, what he needed to do there was sail the throttle a little bit longer, try to get that tire to settle down. It's easy to say, but it's very, very hard to do.
So the 1999 Top Fuel champion puts John Smith still in the winless column. And look at those tire marks we saw on the racetrack. Whoa, wait a minute. Corey McClenathan climbing out of the car. He has been shut off at the starting line. Rhonda Hartman-Smith will have a solo. This is 2 times in a row that Rhonda has now got the win over Corey. Last time she beat him heads up at Indy in 2003. But this time, and let's go back and see what happened with Corey. He was backing up the race car. Oh, man.
We saw this happen with Kenny Bernstein a few years ago. Once the thing got backing up, started whipping the tire back and forth, and it looks like it pulled the parachute out when that happened.
And you saw the chute there, tied up underneath the race car. So now we move on to Scott Coletta and Bob Vandergrift Jr. Well, a little tire smoke from Bob Vandergrift and a 4.88 second blast at 299 miles an hour for Scott Coletta gives him the round win. And it also moves Scott ahead of Corey McClenathan in the points. Now we focus on Doug Herbert. Doug Zilla, notice how much they have raised their windscreen area to keep that air from getting inside the cockpit.
And they did that coming into the race, anticipating that that could be a problem. I think it was a pretty good move because some of the other teams have had to do it after qualifying.
Mike Strasberg will be over in the left lane. Well, Strasberg was out on Herbert early, but then you saw the tire smoke, and Doug takes the win, 5.06 seconds. And whoa, hold on, he's trying to get it stopped. The second chute just finally deploys, and he's into the sand, and oh no, into the catch net. So now, I'm sure Doug is A-OK. There is Ed the Ace McCullough. And there's Doug climbing out. He is more angry than anything else because we'll have to wait and see how much damage occurred to the front end of this race car and if he tweaked the chassis.
I think the chassis may be okay. The biggest problem they'll probably have is the amount of sand that's going to get into the fuel system because of that fuel tank vent in the front. That's normally the big problem. And as we saw with Larry Dixon in Columbus, had to take basically field strip the whole car, fuel tank and all the lines and everything, and that usually becomes the biggest problem.
Yeah, we have not seen very many cars go into the sand here, but yesterday, Jeff Arend in Funny Car had a problem when he reached for the chutes, couldn't find the lever, and ended up in the kitty litter as well. So while they try and pull him out of the sand, let's go back a few pairs ago when Corey Mack had all these problems, and then the chute deployed, and you can see it dumped on the ground just underneath the chassis there. Let's go to Parker.
No doubt Doug Herbert isn't happy. Neither is our top fuel winner at Atlanta, Corey McLenithan. Corey, what happened?
Well, as soon as we started the car, when I went to go for the burnout, it was really aggressive. So once I did the burnout, it didn't want to come out of forward, out of forward, basically, to back the car up. So I basically put it on the high side. That's the only thing you can do with anybody else, without somebody out there, is put it on the high side, get it back in reverse, and get back there and try to figure it out. Well, the brakes wouldn't hold it. It was going too fast. When I tried to reach over and grab the brake even harder with both hands, I lost control of the steering. By the time I reached up to grab it, I tried to stay away from the button. But sometimes when they're going back and forth like that, it's inevitable. It smacked my hand off, and it accidentally probably hit the air chute at the same time. But it was over before it started, because once I got back there, I couldn't get it back and forward. So we had a clutch problem, and it's something I kind of felt something in here, but obviously we didn't catch it once again.
And we're down here where the safety safari has already fished Doug Herbert's car out of the sand, but how come you almost stopped in Vail?
That's about the truth. I didn't have any brakes. I should have. I don't know what I could have done. If I was like Fred Flintstone, I would have jammed my feet right through the floor and brought her to a stop. But we won the round, so that's the most important thing. So we'll come back for the next round. We can get it back together, no problem. We got Snap-on tools and Doug Herbert Performance Parts. We got plenty of stuff to bolt it back together. Red Line Oil, I'm sure that kept everything good in the bottom, so we'll be fine.
And remember, up here on the mountain, the air is thin, so when the chutes come out, they don't tug as hard as they do at sea level.
That's very true, Bill, as we get ready now for David Grubnick and Rob Passy. Now, Grubnick was involved in the tire pressure. Remember, we have a minimum set pressure. Let's get more from Dave Reed.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, Marty, that minimum pressure, 7 pounds for these top fuel dragsters, 6.5 for Funny Car. How do they check it? Very simple. You're looking at Ray Alley, the director of competition, with the tire gauge in his hand, Goodyear officials on hand, making sure that number is above 7 pounds per square inch. In this case, on Don Cisenka's left rear slick, it's good. Check on the right side. It's good. He's set to run.
And so are we with Rob Passy and David Grubnick. No contest. David Grubnick all the way in this one. You see the numbers there, 4.90 seconds. So as of right now, Team Coletta has all 3 cars advancing to the second round. And you can see the crowd. In fact, they're still coming in. The traffic was backed up quite a ways on the freeway outside of Vandermeer Speedway. We get ready for Don Cisenka and Brandon Bernstein. Now remember, Bernstein, he won from the pole back at Houston, but the last 2 times he's been on pole, Columbus and New Jersey, he's been upset. And so I saw him this morning, and he still remembers it. He doesn't want to relive it. And Don Cisenka is in the other lane.
Yeah, I mean, Don Cisenka, what he needs to do is just go from A to B down the racetrack. You know he's not going to run the big number, but if something happens to Brandon Bernstein, like it's happened before, he's basically smoking the tires, Don Cisenka could be there. But Tim Richards, I mean, he's very good up here on the mountain. I mean, he's not going to take any chances. He's definitely not going for low ED, especially in these conditions. He just wants to get it to the other end. If that happens, he should get the win.
Well, you saw Brandon had cylinders out from the get-go, but still manages to go low for the ground. 4.87 seconds at 301 miles an hour.
Yeah, as soon as Brandon Bernstein hit the throttle, look on the right side of your screen. Right over here, he's going to, well, basically he's going to right there. As soon as he hit the throttle, the cylinder went out. Tim Richards was making sure that he was not going to smoke the tires. I mean, he didn't go up there purposely to smoke the tires, but to drop a cylinder. But what happens is you back that thing down enough, take enough horsepower weight, it can't burn the fuel, and as a result, you drop the cylinder. But it got to the finish line, ran 487, lowest yield round thus far.
So that brings us down to our final pair in top fuel. So far, 4 out of the top 5 in the points have advanced. Larry Dixon is the remaining member of that group. He is 4th in the points right now, and There he is as he's backing up in the right lane as the number 2 qualifier, and an old nemesis for him, Mitch King over in the other lane. Now there is Vitor Mira. If you were watching the IRL race yesterday from Nashville, you know Vitor did not have the kind of day he wanted. He finished 12th. Tony Kanaan won the race, but he's out here experiencing the event with Don Perdone's race team. There is Larry. Mitch King's first race and first round win ever was when he upset Larry Dixon at Houston back in 2002. We're up in tire smoke. There's Dick LaHaye, and 5:32 is the winning number for Larry Dixon. And let's check in with Parker.
Well, it's good to have another IndyCar driver in the house. You led the first 100 laps last night. But, Vitor, what do you think of NHRA?
I mean, that's the first time I'm on the starting line. It's crazy. I mean, I thought I was going quicker. And now I realize they are the men, because, Jesus Christ, that's quick. It's just like somebody hits you and hitting you. It's just crazy. It's great. That's not gonna be the first time I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna come back and for sure come more times here.
Bring David Letterman and Bobby Rahal with you, won't you?
Oh, they're gonna be impressed. Also, I'll bring Bob Sutton also with Centrix, and well, that's the first time I'm here. It's tough. It's not easy to be here.
He came off the ground, Marty.
All right, Brandon Bernstein and Scott Coletta have lane choice on one side in Top Fuel. And then over on the other side, Larry Dixon, actually with that 5:32, does have lane choice over Tony Schumacher. So does David Grubnick. Funny car when we come back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. Back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals at Vandermeer Speedway, Denver, Colorado. And let's take a look at our funny car ladder presented by Lucas Oil. And you'll see that Whit Bazemore, boy, 2 great runs yesterday to take the #1 spot, lower the track record a bunch. Eric Medlin, Gary Dencham, and Cruz Pedregon have lane choice. That's going to be the first pair we're going to take a look at. Tony Pedregon over Gary Sullivan. That's going to be a barn burner. Wilkerson, Force, and Tommy Johnson Jr. also have lane choice. Let's get down trackside. You're on board with Cruz. He's over in the right lane. Cruz, the runner-up here last year to John Force. Well, Cruz leans on it pretty hard, but he gets down the track 5.31 seconds at 260 miles an hour. But Cruz advances to the second round. As we look back from the far end of the racetrack, down that 75-foot incline that helps slow the cars down, except when you don't have any brakes whatsoever. Track temperature 129. And that is getting very warm. That's the warmest it has been. And there is Gary Scelzi, the winner last time out in St. Louis. In fact, this is a rematch. As you take a look at his last 6 races, this is a rematch of round 1 back in St. Louis when Scelzi beat Tony Pedregon there.
Even though Gary Scelzi only qualified in the number 15 position, yesterday he was on a very, very good run, and the parachute fell out just about half track, slowed him down. Now, you got to throw all that out because the conditions are completely different today. The track with this new tire, they're still trying to get a handle on. Obviously, with 129-degree track temperature, they're going to have to back these cars down. I guarantee you, crew chief Mike Neff right there was back in there turning the knobs, trying to back these cars down and try to get them hooked up the full quarter mile.
Tony Pedregon has 1 round win in the last 3 races. These guys have been going in opposite directions. Well, maybe the bleeding has stopped for Tony. He gets a little revenge after the loss of St. Louis, and he comes back to take the win light here as both cars go up in tire smoke. This is going to hurt Scelzi in the points. Remember, he came in 4th, only 94 behind John Force.
Yeah, Gary Scelzi, I mean, looked good off the starting line, had 0.02 of a second advantage off the starting line in reaction time. Picked up another 0.02 of a second by 60 feet. So the car was moving, but right there, it started to slide around. They were applying the clutch a little bit too hard, a little too much horsepower, smoked the tires, and that allowed Tony Pedregon, even though he smoked the tires, it was farther down track to go by for the win.
And you saw that crane cam shot that we had, and let's show it to you. And there is RJ way up there, and he showed you the great pictures. Better him than me, Gunga Din. There's the view from up top, looking back down 135 feet above the race surface. You know, we should close Gary Scelzi's chapter for today. This track has never been good to him. You know, he has never made it to a final in either his Top Fuel or Funny Car career, and here he is out in round number 1. Let's talk a little bit about Bandimere Speedway.
Well, I mean, basically it's a normal racetrack, quarter-mile long surface, concrete into asphalt. The launch pad, pretty much a standard 600 feet before it transfers into the asphalt. But look at the elevation. It's 5,860 feet above sea level. And what that does, it makes it very hard to make horsepower because the pressure is down up here, the barometric pressure. It doesn't force as much air into these engines at sea level. Mother Nature at sea level pushes much more air into these engines naturally, and as a result, they have to spin the superchargers faster to try to create the power.
You're looking at number 16 qualifier Robert Schwab. Came to this country from Australia with $300 in his pocket and a dream to someday race a funny car. He suffered one serious crash early in his career, and here he is, qualifying for his first ever event, and he's got to go up against the track record holder, #1 qualifier, Whit Bazemore. Baze is up in smoke, look out! At the stripe, an upset! Robert Schwab, 5.66 seconds. Bazemore, the #1 qualifier. He ran 2 perfect passes yesterday, and he's on the trailer.
I mean, not only did he make 2 perfect passes, he made 2 unbelievable passes yesterday. That 484, a tenth of a second quicker than the previous track record. But throw it all out for today because the track is nothing like it was yesterday. Obviously, Lee Beard, you know he backed this thing down. He's a smart man, but the new tire and the new track, obviously he's been making horsepower. It just caught him. It smoked the tires, and as a result, they lost the race.
This is the 4th year in a row where Whit Bazemore has not gotten past second round, and today, stunned in the opening stanza by a rookie by the name of Robert Schwab. Only the 3rd time, there is Robert Schwab, only the 3rd time that Whit has lost from the pole. There is Whit. Let's go to Bill.
Whit Bazemore, just going over what happened in the race car. Obviously, you did everything you could to save that run, Whit, but it just didn't happen.
Well, you know, we have a difference of opinion in our team as to how to get a car to hook back up. And, you know, when people tell you certain things, it can influence you. You have no time to think, but you go with your subconscious. And when I did what I wanted to do, it hooked up, and that's just how it goes. It's unfortunate, it's tough, but, you know, it's a crapshoot today. You know, it's a new guy. I just met him. He seems like a nice guy. He was a little squirrely yesterday, but I'm sure with more experience he'll get better driving, and you know, good luck to him the rest of today.
So Whit will have to wait and see what happens with Del Worsham and John Forbes. And look at this crowd. They get great attendance here. Had Friday's washout, and that was no fun because we had a great crowd there as well. Speaking of Del Worsham, he's in the left lane up against this man, Eric Medlin, the new track speed record holder. In fact, just shy of the 1999 mark set in Top Fuel by Joe Amato.
Yeah, Del Worsham and his father Chuck right there. They don't have lane choice. Everybody's chosen the right lane in funny car up to this point, but these guys are very, very good at finding a combination on race day. These are the kind of conditions they like, where it may be a driver's race. Del's as good as anybody if that does happen. They're also very good at hitting the setup in these kind of conditions.
Tire smoke for Worsham. And Medlin takes the win. So numbers 2, 3, and 4 in the points are on the trailer. 5:21 for Eric Medlin as he takes the win light, and he will match up next round with Robert Schwab. Now let's show you what else happened in funny car. First up, Gary Dencham and Bob Gilbertson. And at the hit of the throttle, Denson goes up in smoke. Gilbertson pedals his way to the win light. So now make its numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the points. Out of here on the trailer. What about number 1, John Force? He's got Jerry Tolliver in the opening round. Force is in the right lane. Tolliver, he gets tire smoke. Force gets to a 5.16, 270 miles an hour. So the points leader going to open up some ground. Tommy Johnson Jr. Car doesn't sound very good in the right lane. Jeff Arend went back to the Corvette body after yesterday's adventure in the kitty litter. But TJ actually even runs quicker than Forrest, 5.13 seconds. He'll have lane choice over John next round. And finally, Phil Burkhart and Tim Wilkerson. Wilkerson with the lane choice. He goes right lane. But then it looks like he loses the blower belt. Burkhart takes the win, 5.35 seconds. Here's the ladder. So Eric Medlin has the lane choice over the rookie, Robert Schwab. Cruz Pedregon, lane choice over Bob Gilbertson. Second round on the other side, Phil Burkhart and Tommy Johnson Jr. with lane choice. Now, let's meet Robert Schwab. Here's Dave Reef.
Everybody wants to know about the Australian Robert Schwab and how he did what he did against Whit Bazemore. Tire smoking affair, but it's 4 years of match racing in Salt Lake City that got you that round, Robert.
Yeah, I watched these guys, Gary Densham, all those old guys, they did a lot of match racing. That's where they learned how to drive, and I've been studying everybody, and we'll get this thing rebuilt and go back out there and hopefully we won't smoke the tires.
They're only planned this race, but hey, maybe after today, who knows? Maybe they'll continue on.
Could this be a Cinderella story? Well, still to come. We'll talk with Joe Amato, who remembers his driver and friend, Darrell Russell.
I think it was his demeanor, his smile, his attitude. He wasn't cocky at all. He wasn't brash. He didn't, if he beat somebody, he didn't rub it in their face. I mean, he just was just a nice guy.
Back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals, let's get you caught up on what happened in Pro Stock in the opening round. Let's kick it off with Dave Conley and Ron Krischer. And watch Conley in the left lane because he's going to turn on the red light. Krischer runs 7.23 seconds at 191 miles an hour to take the win. And next up it would be J.R. Carr and Larry Morgan. Morgan in the right lane. Gave up a little bit at the starting line, but had too much at the other end. He goes 7.21 seconds, 191 miles an hour to take the win. V Gates closest to you, running against Jake Coughlin, the two-time Powerade champion. V in front of his hometown fans. He lives nearby Lakewood. He takes the win light, a 722 to a 724. Both cars running 191.
Even though V Gaines had the power advantage all week and a bit of a mild upset right here, as the Mopar just had a little bit extra on the top end.
Next up it would be Bruce Allen and Jim Yates. Starting line advantage would go to Jim Yates, as you can see, by 3/100ths. But watch at the other end. Allen goes 7.21 seconds, 191 miles an hour to take the win. Then it was Jason Line and Mike Edwards. Line in the right lane. He goes 7.22 seconds to Edwards 7:28. Wins this one by almost a car length. And that would bring us up to Kurt Johnson and Kenny Koretsky. It would be the advantage off the starting line to KJ, and Kurt would cruise 7.22 seconds later at 191 miles an hour.
Kurt Johnson didn't have lane choice on this run, but he makes a nice, straight, and true run this time. Second round, he will have lane choice.
And that would bring us up to the Powerade points leader, Greg Anderson. New paint scheme with the Summit colors on board, and he picks up right where he left off, going low for the round. 7.20 seconds, 191 miles an hour. Mark Wisnett, never a factor. And finally, Steve Johns and the Professor, WJ. And watch this. Warren with a big hole shot, and he's going to win this one in a hole shot. 7:24, quicker but losing 7:23, and it's the fourth reaction time loss this year for Stevie Johns. Here's the ladder presented by Lucas Oil, and in Pro Stock it'll be Greg Anderson and Bruce Allen with the lane choice, as does Larry Morgan and Kurt Johnson. Now we've got to take a commercial break, but when we come back, we'll get you caught up on what happened in the opening round of Pro Stock Bike. Stay with us. All right, we're back here at Denver, Colorado at Bandimere Speedway for the Mopar Mile High Nationals, and we're glad you're with us. And it's time for this week's edition of Powerade Power Time. 17 years ago, Steve Johnson began racing Pro Stock Bike. He probably didn't think it would take 191 starts to get his first win. Well, it finally came several weeks ago at St. Louis. He told us that he hopes win number 2 comes a little sooner.
When we won at the Sears Craftsman Nationals, the team is just like a load of this bricks on our chest had just disappeared. They know they can do it. We know we can do it. Our budget doesn't allow me to have a Mark Pizer. It doesn't allow me to have a George Bryce or a Matt Hines. I want to be able to have that, and I want to be able to talk to the fans and sign autographs and play a little golf and ride the motorcycle. But until we get to that level, I'm going to have to struggle with Shane, and right now we still are struggling, believe it or not. I could do something that no other racer's done. If you've taken 191 wins or 191 races to win one, if I can do it the very next race, man, look at the odds. Hey, I'm 2 for 2 now after the 191.
Let's take a look at our Pro Stock Bike ladder presented by Lucas Oil. And you'll see that Steve Johnson has the lane choice in the opening round over Gino Scali, as does Andrew Hines, our #1 qualifier, Angel Savoy, and Craig Treble. And over on the other side, it will be Antron Brown, Karen Stouffer, GT Tonglet, and Sean Gann with the lane choice. So let's show you what happened in the opening round. And would Steve Johnson go 2 for 2? Well, he would be in the right lane against the defending Powerade champ Gino Scali. And the answer was very quick. It was a no by 1/1000th of a second. He goes red, but he would not be the only one in this opening session that would go red. Gino runs 7:71. Next up, it was Karen Stouffer and Michael Phillips, and Phillips turns on the red light. Stouffer goes 7.64 seconds at 180 miles an hour to take the win.
Karen Stouffer hurt an engine in their first qualifying run, but look at nice rebound as she has to lean that bike to keep in the middle of the lane and get into the second round.
We told you we were seeing a lot of red in the opening round. Well, here goes Blaine Hale, the defending event winner over in the right lane. He turns on the bulb. Sean Gann goes 7.64 seconds at 176 miles an hour. Would anybody get a good green start? Well, Craig Treble and Mike Berry made it yes. And it would be Treble at the other end, 7.60 seconds at 177 miles an hour, taking the win easily over Mike Berry. Then it would be Andrew Hines and Riddell Harris. #1 qualifier gets number 16, and oops, that's number 4 on the red hit parade. Riddell turns it on. Andrew goes 7.53 seconds. That would be low for the opening round, 185 miles an hour. They don't seem to mind the altitude. And then Indianapolis' own Josh Helby turns on the red light. Antron Brown gets the automatic win. He then runs 7.64 seconds at 173 miles an hour. That would bring us up to the other Harley-Davidson, GT Tonglet and Fred Camarena. Both riders get green starts. And it would be GT easily 7.64 seconds, taking the win over Fred. And finally, Angel Savoy and Kurt Mott. They would round out the session. And it would be Angel, second quickest elapsed time, 7.57 seconds, 179 miles an hour, easily outdistancing Kurt Mott. So let's take a look at the updated Pro Stock Bike ladder, and you'll see that Andrew Hines and Angel Savoy have the lane choice. On the other side, it is Antron Brown and GT Tonglet with the lane choice there. And coming up next, Darrell Russell's team owner Joe Amato discusses his driver and the tragic crash. Back here at Bandamere Speedway and the Mopar Mile High Nationals, round 13 of the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. And of course, the last few weeks have been very difficult for the NHRA community, especially for the family of Darrell Russell and Joe Amato and his race team. Last Wednesday, Mike Dunn had a chance to sit down with Joe Amato, and Joe talked about his friend and his driver.
Darrell Russell's name was brought to my attention by Gary Selzy, and when I was looking for a driver when I retired, and basically we put the deal together, and it was the right choice at the time, and I was really happy with it up till this point in time. But yeah, I always look back and say, you know, because there was other people we were talking about, and you always second guess yourself, especially after you have a tragedy like this. But I think I did the right thing, and I think Darrell was definitely the right guy, and I gave him a chance to live his dream, and he loved doing what he did. And I guess if you're gonna have to go, you might as well go, you know, doing what you love to do, and go out kind of at the top of his game. You know, we've done a lot together, and it's really a tough thing for the sport and the fans, and just and for myself. When I got that phone call that Sunday night, I'm kind of glad in a way that I wasn't at the race, because I don't know if I want to remember Darrell how I remembered him the week before at Englishtown, and the week before when he gave me my 60th birthday present, which something I'll always cherish and remember. I could never forget that, and that's the picture I have in my mind of Darrell, and that's where it's going to stay. not seeing them pull him out of a car crash at the end of the starting line. I remember when Rob Geiger called me up, and it was a bad deal. I mean, but I guess life, you have to go forward and try and do what you can do to try and carry on his memory and remember him as what he was, a true champion. It's just a sin because I think he had the qualities to, the charisma and the desire and all. I think at some point in time, hopefully I could have made him a world champion in his class, and I'll never get the chance to do that.
He goes out and he wins his first race for you in a top field dragster. Did you think that maybe you quit a little too soon, or were you really happy for him?
I was real happy for him. I mean, it was one of those all-American dreams of you try something new, and it worked out. And, I couldn't have been more tickled for him and the whole Joe Amato racing team, all of us. I mean, we tried to do something, and we were lucky. I mean, that's how life is. If we didn't lose the blower belt, we might have won the shootout that weekend too. So, I mean, it was really a good way to start a second career for me, and it was really exciting to have Darrell start that way.
Did that just kind of solidify the fact that you made the right choice when he came out and won the first race?
Well, one thing I noticed right away is that when we got to the further rounds in the race, he didn't rattle, he didn't get nervous, he just kind of went with the flow. And that was one of his true characteristics, why I think he could have been a champion, because he didn't roll over under the pressure. I mean, he just kind of, in his laid-back style of that being Darrell Russell, he just went and did it. I mean, just like when he won the race, Columbus, my birthday, he was on a mission that day, and he accomplished it.
With that win, I mean, it seemed like you and Darrell really genuinely liked each other just by watching it. I mean, is that pretty much the way it was?
Oh, yeah. We used to. I mean, when I was at the track, we always went out to dinner, and every night that I was there, that they could get out, me, him, and Rob Geiger, and a couple other friends and stuff. We always spent a lot of time together at the track, off the track, and which I thought was good. It was good bonding. He could get away at night where the crew guys had to work, and so I, had a good relationship on that end of it. We used to always tease him about his horses and all the things that he was involved in. His wife Julie, and they were talking about starting to have a family, and like all of that kind of stuff. So that's the hard part. You have all those memories of the what if stuff, and to every once in a while that comes into your brain. I guess the further we get away from time, it'll heal everything, but it's still all pretty fresh.
You mentioned this before, you not being at the track. You actually mentioned that it was maybe a good thing. So do you think it would have been harder had you been there?
Yeah, I've every time I'm at the track, and I've seen most of the major wrecks out there, and being as close as I was to Darrell, if I was at the track and had to go down to the finish line and see the whole thing as it transpired, I think it was hard enough as it was, but I'm kind of glad I didn't actually see it in person, and just because something like that, this will be in my brain for the rest of my life, but there's also a lot of good things. I mean, and I didn't actually see it physically, and I haven't watched the TV that much to really look at it. I did once, and I'm not going to get crazy with it, just you have to kind of let things go sometimes and let it heal.
You don't have any desire to watch the footage of it?
I watched it once. I'm not in make myself crazy. I mean, I know Wayne and the team were really striving toward trying to have some good come out of this. I mean, there's some rule changes on the issue with they're changing the tires, they're putting the shielding around the drivers. I'll call that the Darrell Russell rule. And there's going to be some future changes on the safety, and we've got the chassis builder that built our car, and there's another person that builds most of them build the top fuel cars. They're going to come to our shop, and we're going to show them what we think could be done better. So the long haul, the safety issue, and NHRA is looking at it all, and they're analyzing. So things will get better, as in the case with most accidents, but it's a sin that we have to get to that point. But that's at least if some good comes out of it.
What should the fans remember most about Darrell Russell?
I just think remember him for what he was. He was just a nice guy. He was nice to everybody. He loved doing what he loved to do, whether it was playing with his animals, his horses, or drag racing. That was his lifetime dream. He was lucky enough. A lot of people have a dream where they can't fulfill it. So if Darrell Russell fulfilled his dream, it may have cost him his life in the end, but he was living his dream. So I guess just maybe the young kids out there that want to be race car drivers and all, they have to live their dream and work hard to get there. If they can use Darrell as an inspiration to try and live their dream, maybe that's a good thing to say.
And if you weren't with us at the beginning of the broadcast, Joe Amato has announced that the team will return to competition at Brainerd. Now, crew chief Wayne Dupuy also had a lot of fond memories, and what he would miss most about Darrell Russell, he too talked with our Mike Dunn last Wednesday.
Oh, just how great of a guy he was. You know, Darrell always had time for his fans. He always treated every fan and everybody with the greatmost of respect, and they need to remember that, and I think all of them will. There'll be never another guy standing at the ropes like Darrell Russell for the fans, or doing an interview, or anything that he did for all those fans, and they need to remember him for that, because he was there. You know, they might have had to wait 2 or 3 minutes for him to get undressed or dressed, but he was out there talking to them and relating with them, and he appreciated the fans a whole lot, because Darrell knew without the fans that we probably wouldn't be out there racing, you know.
And here at Bandamere Speedway, there is a star. Of course, Darrell from the state of Texas. In his memory, a tribute. Back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals, it is Bandamere Speedway, and let's get you caught up on what an exciting first round of Top Fuel we had. Remember a pedal fest? John Smith over in the left lane, Tony Schumacher in the right. Tony recovered better and got to the stripe first. And then the problem for Corey McLenithan. Clutch was not working right. He tried to back the car up and accidentally deployed the chute. That ended his day early. And then poor Doug Herbert had absolutely no brakes, and the parachute is not enough to stop these cars, even in this thin air, and he goes into the catch net. No severe damage, and he will make second round action. Let's talk about the Top Fuel ladder presented by Lucas Oil, and you'll see that Brandon Bernstein and Scott Coletta have lane choice, as does Larry Dixon and David Grubnick. In fact, this is our first matchup we're going to look at, Dixon and Tony Schumacher.
Yeah, and Larry Dixon's chosen the right lane. It seemed to be better in the first round. We saw a lot of cars more often spinning the tires down track than in the right-hand lane, and that's why Larry Dixon's chosen that.
Great drag race in the heat. Track temperature 131, the hottest it's been all weekend. And Tony Schumacher takes the win light, 4.97 seconds to a 4.98. Let's check him. Before we go to Dave Reef, let's take a look at this run.
Well, Tony Schumacher had 0.02 of a second off of the starting line, and then you're going to see Larry Dixon start to haze the tires about 300 feet out. That was a problem we saw in the left lane in the previous round. So lane choice may be starting to change a little bit, because Tony Schumacher, not a great run, but it was good enough to get him into the semifinals.
Take a look at the incrementals. The arrow indicates who was leading at that particular point on the racetrack, and where it really counts, it was Tony Schumacher. Now let's bring in Dave Reef.
Well, Marty, as you mentioned, Doug Herbert able to make it back after only minimal damage. They ripped the spill plates off the front wing, have replaced that entire thing. And as far as that, other pieces of mud flat back here, directly to the right of Doug Herbert, and a belly pan on the bottom of this car. That's all they had to fix. Otherwise, it was normal maintenance. There is one other thing, if I can remember what it was. Oh yeah, brakes. Brakes are pretty darn important when you're going 300 mile an hour, aren't they, Mike?
Well, as we saw, it put Doug Herbert right in the sandbox.
Back out on the starting line, David Grubnick taking his burnout alongside his Rhonda Hartman-Smith. And if you're just tuning in, we want to welcome you to the Mopar Mile High Nationals here at Bandamere Speedway. It is round 13 of the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. I'm Marty Reed along with Mike Dunn, and down the pits it's Bill Stevens, Dave Reef, and Parker Johnstone. In fact, let's check in with Bill.
Tony Schumacher is always singing the praises of his tuner, Alan Johnson, and there was a great example of what he can do.
You know, he's a genius. He's smart enough to be able to read a track 131 degrees out there. It's hot, it's oily, it's slippery. And that was a great race. 6,000th, they said, at the finish line. It's what you guys pay your money to come out and see. But, hey, for the United States Army, for Gates, Belts, and Hoses, Matco Tools, all the wonderful people that have helped us out. Most importantly, for my beautiful wife, Kara, Anthony, and Michael at home. You guys are missing this one, and it's a good one. We're back on track. New tires, big new deal here, but we're going to get it squared away. We are going to make them safe for the families.
pace with the points championship, where he's in second place right now. And there is Aussie Dave Grubnick.
Well, like Tony Schumacher said, 131-degree track temperature. A new tire these crew chiefs are going to have to deal with. Very, very tricky conditions.
Cylinder out for Grubnick. And the win light to Ronda in a hole shot. 5.08 seconds to a 5.07, and neither driver was really stellar off the starting line.
Well, what happened there was David Grubnick was trying to stage the car shallow. He was blinking the stage light. I think that threw off both drivers. Both drivers were very late. David Grubnick later than Ronda Hartman, but it really threw him off. You see the cylinder out right there early in the run, and just didn't have the horsepower, but still, this is one of those deals with David Grubnick. He's going home after second round.
Third hole shot loss this year.
And Ronda Hartman-Smith, we just want to hear you describe how good it feels to beat David Grubnick on a hole shot.
It feels good, considering I didn't think I was all that great with the first round mishap, and with Corey, I wasn't all that great, and I didn't think I, would drill David Grubnick. He's really hard on the tree, but for this whole Fram Air Hog team, we're glad that we got the win, and we're hungry for it. So I think it's just all coming into play, and I hope we can get in the final.
After a dismal first half, they really do look forward to a better second half this season.
It'll be her first semifinal appearance of 2004. And as we turn our attention back to the starting line, Doug Zilla on the line. And if you had a brake failure, would you be thinking about it right now?
No, I think he's got all the confidence in his crew and McCullough. They're definitely very good. And he's not going to worry about, right now he's worried about getting the finish line first. They don't worry about stopping it.
Up there goes the blower belt, and Scott Coletta takes another step towards a return to the winner's circle, where he has won here twice. 4.87 seconds at 300 miles an hour. Parker.
Marty, all weekend long, being a mile high here at Vandermeer Raceway, I've heard people say, I need more oxygen. Well, in fact, you don't need more oxygen, you need more pressure, because no matter what altitude you're at, air is composed of nitrogen, 79.1%, with 20.9% of oxygen. If you're in a commercial airliner, they don't add oxygen, they add pressure. When you're down at sea level, you've got all this atmosphere pushing down, but here at Vandermeer, you're 15% less pressure than you are at sea level. For the fuel teams, they have a huge advantage over Pro Stock and Pro Stock Bike. They simply spin the supercharger 15% faster to get the same pressure inside the engine, the same amount of boost that they had at sea level. For Pro Stock, well, they're the guys in the white bag. That's all the air they can get in their engines. But for the fuel classes, wow, they can put as much air into that engine, as much pressure as they need to.
Parker, as long as you're not in the bag. Back down on the starting line, Doug Coletta in the points lead, but he's got to keep pace now with Tony Schumacher. And we mentioned it at the beginning of the broadcast in the first round. It has been 9 years since a Coletta has had the points lead. And that seems hard to believe.
That is hard to believe, and it's interesting that Brandon Bernstein and his crew chief Tim Richards have chosen that left-hand lane. Now, in qualifying, the left-hand lane was better. The best runs were running that. We saw in the first round, everybody was kind of choosing that right lane, but it does change from round to round, and Tim Richards feels comfortable in that left-hand lane.
The win light to Brandon Bernstein. 4.88 seconds, so number 3 in the points takes out the points leader. And as it stands now, Tony Schumacher has regained the points lead by 8.
Wow, Brandon Bernstein dodged a bullet. Doug Coletta had 0.07 of a second advantage off of the starting line. I didn't think he was going to be able to make it up, but Tim Richards put the tune-up on the race car for the mountain up here, 488. That doesn't sound like great numbers down at sea level, but for up here, it's good enough to get him into the semifinals.
Take a look at the photo finish by almost half a car length. Brandon Bernstein takes the win. Let's take a look at the matchups now for the semifinals. It'll be lane choice to Scott Coletta over Brandon Bernstein, and then Tony Schumacher over Ronda Hartman-Smith. The helmet's off, so let's go to Bill.
How big was that round, Brandon Bernstein?
Oh, that was huge. It just goes to show you, man, Tim's got this thing dialed in. The heat of the day to run that number, and I don't know about the leave on there, but we do. I might have been a little late there. I
kind of felt like it. But hey, you know what? Tim just got us there. That's what this team just did. This Budweiser Lucas Oil team just got us that round. Now I got to do my job the next round.
Yeah, it seems to have been a reversal of fortune from those last 2 first-round losses they've had.
That's true. Doug Coletta, 8 points behind as Tony Schumacher has now taken over the points lead. Brandon Bernstein is 3rd. Stay with us. We're coming back. Back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals, where we have already seen one of our professional categories have a lead change at the top. Tony Schumacher now has the top fuel lead again. Take a look at the funny car ladder and you can see that it is Eric Medlin, Cruz Pedregon, Phil Burkhardt, and Tommy Johnson Jr. all with the lane choice here in round number 2. Look at this crowd. Boy, do they turn out for this mountain race. Cruz Pedregon, Bob Gilbertson down on the line. The body comes down on the Advanced Auto Parts Monte Carlo. Cruz in the right lane.
And crew chief Wes Cerny's got a lot of experience up here, but you can't count out Bob Gilbertson and that team right there, because with these type of conditions, it's a great equalizer. I mean, it's very, very tricky out there. But Wes Cerny right there, that man has a lot of experience. You can't count him out. But I'll tell you what, anything can happen right now.
Bob Gilbertson went to the finals here back in 2001. Cruz was in the finals last year. Both cars having problems. Who's first? Cruz. 5.79 seconds. And as you're on board with him, he's not even going to pull the laundry. And he is going to make it. And finally the chute comes out. So he makes the turn, bouncing all the way.
Yeah, he was trying to make that apex, wasn't he? Let's go back to replay here. They both spun the tires almost identically, just about 100 feet off the starting line. Cruz did a good job backpedaling. Let's go on board and watch how he's got to work the steering wheel. You hear him working the throttle there, driving this thing all the way to the other end, trying to keep it from over-revving too much and getting to the finish line under power. That is the key right there. Bob Gilbertson, let's watch. Like we said, he spun the tires almost at the same point that Cruz Pedregon did. He tries to get back in. Look at him feather that throttle. And then he gets back on, tries to get to recover, but Cruz Pedregon just did a little bit of a better job at that point and got the win.
And as Cruz gets ready to climb out from underneath the helmet, let's take you back to the first round, to the biggest upset of the day. Robert Schwab over in the left lane takes out the #1 qualifier as Whit Bazemore was on the trailer. Now let's go to Dave Reef.
Words from Whit Bazemore following a disappointing round 1 loss. I'm down in the Whit Bazemore pit with the team owner Don Schumacher now, and Don, Whit referred to a difference of driving opinion a little bit and was pretty upset. But do you know what he was talking about?
Not really. I didn't hear the actual words, and I really haven't even spoke to Whit about it as of yet. But we all know how emotional Whit is and how he wears his emotion on his sleeve at times and says things at the end of the racetrack that after the fact he wish he wouldn't even have commented or done or been involved in. But Whit's a great driver, does a great job for us, and I'm sure everything will work out just fine. But to lose first round again here, being qualified #1, it's really disappointing and hard for a driver, an owner, and a crew to take. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he said some things that he may not have chosen to say.
So there is no chemistry issue?
No, there's no chemistry issue at all. I mean, I really consider Whit one of the best funny car drivers there is out here, and he does a great job for us.
Chalk it up to the heat of battle.
Well, and if we're on target, nobody has come out and said it, but it's a technique that you sort of mastered, and that's grabbing the brake.
Well, yeah, there's different driving styles, and obviously they disagree on how to get the car to recover the best, and that's just something you have to work out between the crew chief and sit down and figure out what's going to win you that round.
John Force, first time since November of 2002, that was 35 races ago, that he was the funny car points leader. The last time that happened, you have to go all the way back to 1990. Tommy Johnson in the right lane. Well, TJ has put the points leader on the trailer. You can see that John had the big advantage off the starting line. There is Tommy's wife, Melanie, and it was tire smoke that cost John the win. 5.32 seconds at 276.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of tire smoke today, but like you said, John Force had about 0.03 of a second advantage off the starting line. He was on his game. He ran about the same 60-foot laps time, but then right at that point, the tire went into shake. Started to spin the tires. You see John trying to get the thing to recover as that thing's bucking down there. But at that point, he sees that Tommy Johnson is far enough ahead that he knows he might as well just shut it off and save it for the next race.
Let's go to Bill.
Well, Crew's 131-degree racetrack, a new Goodyear tire, but the crew chief can only do so much. You did your job that time, didn't you?
Well, I have to, because the team's coming together now. It's our second semifinal event in a row, and I know how these cars, these engines feel out here because I'm out of gas. I'm really tired up here. It's a thin air, but hey, for Advanced Auto Parts and Snap-on and American Race Products, appreciate everybody, what they do for us, but it really feels good. I think we have our car turned around. Now it's just a matter of trying to get that elusive win, but I think I feel good.
Yeah, he should. He did a great job getting that car to the finish line.
And he's right. The last couple of races, this team has started to show signs of life. And boy, have they been looking for it. Now, time for Eric Medlin to see if he can avoid the Cinderella story known as Robert Schwab. Schwab over in the left lane. If you weren't with us in the opening round, we showed you how he upset Whit Bazemore. This guy literally had a very serious crash years ago, and it took him a long, long time to put this program together. His dream is to race in NHRA competition, and he won his very first round in his very first race. Can he make it too? We're about to find out. Let's check in again with Bill.
With John Force, and an unfortunate turn of events for you. You could have put a little distance between you and the rest of the guys today.
Well, we still put some distance on them. Every point counts, and you know, for Dome and his guys here, Tommy Johnson, they worked hard, and they deserve a win, but you win what you negotiate, and we didn't get down the racetrack, but for Castro Ford and new sponsor startup, for Moot staying in the points lead, that's what's important. Keeping our eyes on Petragon right now and his brother Cruz, and I guess we got to keep an eye on Tommy Johnson.
Right now, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the points are out of here. Medlin's in trouble. And yes, the clock has yet to strike midnight for Robert Schwab. And for only the second time this year, all three John Force cars are eliminated by the end of second round. Can you believe this Cinderella story for Robert Schwab? Oh, my.
Wow, Robert Schwab, obviously a little bit nervous. He was about over a tenth of a second behind in reaction time from Eric Medlin, but it didn't matter because Eric Medlin, he was doing everything right early in the run, but then right at that point, boy, you just saw just a little bit of tire shaking. It was pretty far down track, and then immediately went into tire smoke. Just not any grip out there with 131-degree track temperature, and as a result, he tried to get it to recover, but man, he just couldn't do it, and Robert Schwab just went by for the win.
Dave Reeve.
His wife, Lisa, unbelievable. The crowd loving it too.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. This is icing on the cake. All we wanted to do is qualify. Now we're in the show even more.
How surprising too.
No, not surprising. He knows what he's doing, but my God, thank you. It's just wonderful. Everyone has been so good to us. Thank you so much.
Robert Schwab, he's not racing. Bill?
Tommy Johnson Jr. is having quite a day. I know you feel like a witness to all of this that's going on around us, but you got past the 12-time champ.
Yeah, you know, Force is tough every time you race a car like that. So that just shows how well this Blues Gold team has really turned around and come out here and get the performance of this car where it needs to be and take out a guy like Force. You know, that's what it's all about. We struggled the first half of the season, but the crew hung in there, and maybe today's our day.
A very unusual day on the mountain.
Unusual, think about this. Tony Pedregon and Phil Barkart, the only two left in the top 10 in the points. So one of these guys is going to advance, and that will be it. Let's quickly go to Parker.
Hey, Marty, there are two ways to measure tire pressure, with an old-fashioned analog gauge or with a digital gauge. With all the concern with tire pressure, look what we found. Whenever we're transmitting or the teams are transmitting on their walkie-talkies, the digital gauges go absolutely nuts.
Well, great. Don't stand so close. That's another. See, TV, we just keep messing up everything, don't we?
It went off.
Oh, golly. All right, this is a big matchup here. Tony Pedregon hasn't been to the semifinals since Topeka. They have been trying to get this car turned around, and they've taken a first step. Can they take the second? Phil Burkhart's in the way. Here we go. And it is Phil Burkhardt that's going to go to the semifinals. 5.72 seconds. That will not be good enough for lane choice over Tommy Johnson Jr. So only one member of the top 10 in funny car points, Phil Burkhardt, is going on to the semifinals. Wow. There is the lane choice to Robert Schwab over Cruz Pedregon. And the crowd, you heard them, they're pulling for this guy because he is a definite underdog. TJ with the lane choice over Burkhardt in the other semifinal. Let's check in with Bill.
What a story. Still wearing scars from an accident in this very state 5 years ago that almost ended your career, Robert Schwab. Today, you are going further than anyone would have expected here on the mountain.
You know, it's just a matter of building a reliable car. And when you come to a race like this, you got to be ready. You know, the next round we got Cruiser. Cruiser beat me in a match race like 2-3 years ago, and I've been wanting that back ever since.
And your crew, a lot of the guys never been to a national event before.
That's exactly. Half my crew have never been to a national event before, you know, and
hey, you've already said all the saying you got to do. Let's go back to the booth.
All right, thanks, Phil, and we'll see him in the semifinals. Take one more look at that last run by Phil Burkhardt and Tony Pedregon. We've got to take a commercial break. Pro Stock when we come back. Back here, you can see the crowd. They are still just marveled at the stunning upsets that we've seen here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. The only member of the top 10 in points still in the event in funny car is Phil Burkhardt. There's his win, and he's with Bill at the far end of the racetrack.
Is it a jungle out there today or what?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I haven't shook that hard and felt that head rattle since my alcohol days. I felt like I was in the ring with Mike Tyson. I tell you, for Checker, Shucks, and Cragen, I guess today, you know, Dell went out first round, so I'm carrying the banner for the rest of the day. You know, it was bad out there. You know, it shook so hard and it moved over towards the wall. I pedaled it and I had to get my focus again because, you know, it was shook so hard that I just totally went out of focus and got focused and just drove it for the finish line. It was putting holes out and getting ugly down there, but get to the finish line first. That's the name of the game on Sunday.
You want to pick a winner in funny car today? Be my guest.
I'm not going to take that bet as we take a look at the Pro Stock ladder here presented by Lucas Oil. And you can see Greg Anderson and Bruce Allen as well as Larry Morgan and Kurt Johnson have lane choice in the second round matchups. And it will be KJ and V Gaines, the Lakewood, Colorado resident, trying to go to his first semifinal in 2 years. But he's going to have to get past number 2 in the points, Kurt Johnson. You can see the margin off the starting line. And the win goes to Kurt Johnson in a hole shot. V actually ran quicker, 7.22 seconds, but Kurt goes 7.24, and he had almost, well, he did have 700ths off the starting line. 4th reaction time win this year for KJ. And as we get ready for the next pair, which will be Kurt's father, Warren, up against Larry Morgan, let's talk about the rule change that we've had in Pro Stock.
And this rule was basically put in place to reduce the cost of Pro Stock racing. And it's all moving engine parts are restricted to aluminum, steel, iron, titanium, magnesium, or other conventional alloys. Push rods and valve springs must be made of steel. And that's an effort to keep away. And here's the weight of the internal parts. You see these weights here. That's in an effort to keep away some of the exotic materials such as beryllium, ceramics, and carbon fibers. Once again, to keep that cost down.
And as we get ready for this run, the professor, Warren Johnson, remember it was 2001, right at this very track, when he passed Bob Glidden to take the all-time lead in Pro Stock wins with number 86. And he has won here more than that, including last year. He's the defending event champion. You can see his round record on this mountain. It's pretty astounding.
And it's also astounding he won on a hole shot in the first round, so he likes the mountain.
Larry Morgan, this is his sponsor's race. He's going to try and keep the Mopar colors going into the semifinals. Who's going to go in first? It's Warren. Uh-oh. Warren a little late this time. And Larry Morgan puts him on the trailer, 7.22 seconds at 191 miles an hour. So the professor will not defend his win from last year here at Bandamere. And we come right up to our next pair. It'll be Jason Line and Bruce Allen. And you've got a couple of Grand Ams on the starting line. General Motors products. And last Thursday, the Pro Stock drivers gathered at the 32nd Annual Oakland Club International Convention in Joplin, Missouri. And GM drivers Warren Johnson, Bruce Allen, Jim Yates, Mike Edwards all came out for the autograph session, and over 500 fans were on hand to visit with the NHRA drivers. As we come back trackside, there is Jason Line. Let's get more on him from Parker.
Well, Marty, as we've spoken about, Jason Line's first pass in the hand-me-downs from Greg Anderson that dominated the first half of the season. Jason told me that the controls are all placed differently than his previous car. Clutch pedal, brake pedal, gas pedal, position of the steering wheel. Mike Dunn, that's got to be critical when in this class you have to be dead consistent.
Yeah, I would think it'd be critical. It's like getting the hand-me-downs that don't fit. You know, I think I would try to, go to a tailor and get it altered a little bit, but he's done a great job up to this point. Looks very comfortable in the car.
Jason first off the line. And first to the stripe. So far, that is low for this second round. 7.20 seconds at 191 miles an hour. So number 3 in the points keeps pace. Let's check in with Bill.
Larry Morgan, you know and I know for a long time you've been out here and you haven't always had a car that can run with Warren Johnson, but you just beat him flat head to head.
Well, we've worked very hard, and to be at the Mopar race, get this Mopar car in the final, that's what we come here for, and that's what we intend to do.
I wouldn't bet against it right now.
And we're taking another look at his run by a car length over WJ. And now it's time for Greg Anderson, the man who has won 16 of the last 23 races, dating back to last year. Parker?
Hey, we talked a little bit about how the fuel classes can compensate with their blowers for horsepower. They can also increase wing angle in order to make up some of the downforce they lose at altitude. But Mike, these Pro Stock cars have almost no downforce to begin with at sea level. I've been told it's like driving a car across an ice lake. What happens when they get here up on the mountain? How do they hold on to these things?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a great equalizer. I mean, the lack of downforce goes along with the lack of horsepower because they don't have the air in there to make the horsepower. I mean, to put it in perspective, like the fuel cars that have the superchargers that can run them faster, you look at Funny Car, Whit Bazemore basically in the good conditions ran about 0.15 of a second slower than the national record. Pro Stock, on the other hand, because they don't have that supercharger advantage, are running about 0.5 of a second difference. So I think that kind of equalizes everything out.
Well, and if you think about Greg Anderson being dominant, well, it could be just about everywhere but here. He has never advanced past second round. Guess what round we're in right now? Now, as far as tracking his history for the year, you can see that he set the record last year, and now he is up to 42-3 so far in 2004. Krischer first off the line. Well, Greg Anderson goes low for the round, and for the first time in his career, he is out of second round and going to his first semifinal at Denver. 7.19 seconds, 192 miles an hour.
Boy, what can you say about Greg Anderson? I mean, this was a brand new car, only had 4 runs coming into this race, but I mean, it looks like he's had a whole season on this thing. I mean, the thing's been flawless all weekend, just like he's been all year.
And let's check in with Bill.
Jason Lyon has got Greg Anderson in the next round. If I were you, I'd go over to his pit area and find out what he's doing over there. Think you can do that?
I think I can, actually.
Hey, his car, which you're driving now, seems to be as good a piece as it was for him.
Yeah, the variable's the driver, and I'm getting better at it, so hopefully I'm not slowing it down a whole lot. He may slow down next round, you never know.
Well, we won't have an Anderson Line final. We'll have an Anderson Line semifinal.
And all 4 now in the top 4 in the points are going to match up in the semifinals because Larry Morgan has moved ahead of Dave Conley in the chase. Greg Anderson, number 1 against number 3, Jason Line. He's got lane choice there. Larry Morgan, who is now number 4, has lane choice over number 2, Kurt Johnson. Bikes are next. All right, we're back here at Denver, Colorado at Bandimere Speedway for the Mopar Mile High Nationals, and we're glad you're with us. And it's time for this week's edition of Powerade Power Time. 17 years ago, Steve Johnson began racing Pro Stock bike. He probably didn't think it would take 191 starts to get his first win. Well, it finally came several weeks ago at St. Louis. He told us that he hopes win number 2 comes a little sooner.
When we won at the Sears Craftsman Nationals, the team is just like a load of this bricks on our chest had just disappeared. They know they can do it. We know we can do it. Our budget doesn't allow me to have a Mark Pizer. It doesn't allow me to have a George Bryce or a Matt Hines. I want to be able to have that, and I want to be able to talk to the fans and sign autographs and play a little golf and ride the motorcycle. But until we get to that level, I'm going to have to struggle with Shane, and right now we still are struggling, believe it or not. I could do something that no other racer's done. If you've taken 191 wins or 191 races to win one, if I can do it the very next race, man, look at the odds. Hey, I'm 2 for 2 now after the 191.
Let's take a look at our Pro Stock Bike Ladder presented by Lucas Oil. And you'll see that Steve Johnson has the lane choice in the opening round over Gino Scali, as does Andrew Hines, our #1 qualifier, Angel Savoy, and Craig Treble. And over on the other side, it will be Antron Brown, Karen Stouffer, GT Tonglet, and Sean Gann with the lane choice. So let's show you what happened in the opening round. And would Steve Johnson go 2 for 2? Well, he would be in the right lane against the defending Powerade champ Gino Scali, and the answer was very quick. It was a no by 1/1000th of a second. He goes red, but he would not be the only one in this opening session that would go red. Gino runs 7:71. Next up, it was Karen Stouffer and Michael Phillips, and Phillips turns on the red light. Stouffer goes 7.64 seconds at 180 miles an hour to take the win.
Karen Stouffer hurt an engine in their first qualifying run, but look at nice rebound as she has to lean that bike to keep in the middle of the lane and get into the second round.
We told you we were seeing a lot of red in the opening round. Well, here goes Blaine Hale, the defending event winner over in the right lane. He turns on the bulb. Sean Gann goes 7.64 seconds at 176 miles an hour. Would anybody get a good green start? Well, Craig Treble and Mike Berry made it yes. And it would be Treble at the other end, 7.60 seconds at 177 miles an hour, taking the win easily over Mike Berry. Then it would be Andrew Hines and Riddell Harris. #1 qualifier against number 16, and oops, that's number 4 on the red hit parade. Riddell turns it on. Andrew goes 7.53 seconds. That would be low for the opening round, 185 miles an hour. They don't seem to mind the altitude. And then Indianapolis' own Josh Helby turns on the red light. Antron Brown gets the automatic win. He then runs 7.64 seconds at 173 miles an hour. That would bring us up to the other Harley-Davidson, GT Tonglet and Fred Camarena. Both riders get green starts. And it would be GT easily 7.64 seconds, taking the win over Fred. And finally, Angel Savoy and Kurt Mott. They would round out the session. And it would be Angel, second quickest elapsed time, 7.57 seconds, 179 miles an hour, easily outdistancing Kurt Mott. So let's take a look at the updated Pro Stock Bike Ladder, and you'll see that Andrew Hines and Angel Savoy have the lane choice. On the other side, it is Antron Brown and GT Tonglet with the lane choice there. And we welcome you back to the Mopar Mile High Nationals. It's round 13 of the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. And as we take a look at the top fuel ladder, notice in the background the cloud cover starting to roll in. That may help the race teams. We'll talk about more on that in just a moment. Scott Coletta and Tony Schumacher have the lane choice here in the semifinals. And it is that Schumacher-Hartman-Smith matchup that we'll focus on first. But let's give you a sneak preview of what's going to go into effect, another rule change next week at Seattle.
Yes, the 90% rule is in effect right now. That means a maximum 90% nitromethane. The remaining 10% is methanol. Next week in Seattle, they're going to lower that to 85% nitromethane and 15% methanol. And what that means, for every 10 gallons right now of fuel, 9 gallons is nitromethane, 1 gallon is methanol. That'll change to 8.5 and a gallon and a half when we get to Seattle.
There you can see Rhonda's numbers as she is looking to go to her first career final in 147 attempts. But she's got a tough competitor because Tony has taken her out the last 5 times they have matched up. Make it 6, and the points leader goes 4.93 seconds at 298 miles an hour to move into another final.
Wow, what can you say about Alan Johnson? You give him enough time, he's going to figure it out. Doing a good job just not going crazy. He knew if he could get the car down the racetrack, make a representative run. He had a good shot at taking out Ron Hartman, and that's exactly what happened. Schumacher did his job, had about 0.03 of a second off the starting line, and then Tony just carried it all the way to the other end. Let's watch this run. It wasn't a quick run. I don't see a whole lot go wrong here. I didn't see any tire shake, but you do see the cylinder out right there. They're obviously got the car set up fairly soft, but they want to avoid smoking the tires.
Let's go to Bill.
Well, there's an old saying in racing, they give the money away at the end of the weekend and not the beginning of the weekend. And Tony Schumacher, an inauspicious start in qualifying when you missed that run. But, boy, you're saving the best for last.
Absolutely. It keeps getting better. I'm not sure what we ran there, but it doesn't matter. It felt a whole lot better than it did on the first run. So, hey, for the United States Army, Matco Tools, especially Gates Belts and Hoses, they're right here out of Denver. We love you guys, man. Mopar, I'm the only one carrying the torch right now. I mean, our two funny cars got beat, unfortunately, first round. But, yeah, man, this thing's got a Hemi, and we're using every bit of it.
493 FYI. Dave?
Cruz Pedregon, beware. Robert Schwab is waiting patiently in his car, waiting to race you. And like a lot of teams are figuring out, this Salt Lake-based driver has done a lot of racing at altitude. Mentioned it earlier, it's 1,000 feet difference between Rocky Mountain Raceway and this speedway, Vandermeer Speedway. That's one reason why this team has done so good. But I can tell you one thing, this team did not fire between rounds. So we'll have to keep our eyes out and see what happens.
And Marty, that'll affect more so the clutch than the engine. I mean, the engine not having any temperature, they can bring that up to temperature on the burnout, but the clutch is the critical key there.
All right, let's set the matchup now for Brandon Bernstein and Scott Coletta. Both of their fathers have won here at this racetrack. Scott has won here twice. That was back in his championship years. Brandon, this is his first trip ever to the mountain. Let's talk a little bit about the weather. And the track temperature has dropped all of, about 4 degrees?
Yeah, and it's still plenty warm, and they're going to have to definitely be concerned about spinning the tires still.
Parker?
Marty, but we've had cloud cover move in from the west in just the last minute or two. We're going to see that ambient air temperature and the track temperature continue to drop.
The win light goes to Scott Coletta in a hole shot. He runs 4.80 seconds to the quicker but losing 4.79 of Brandon Bernstein. He had 2 100ths advantage off the starting line, and he made it hold up.
Wow, this was a great drag race considering all the tire smoke we've seen all day. Both teams had these cars hooked up. Very good runs for the conditions right now. Like you said, 0.02 of a second advantage off the starting for Scott Coletta. That was the difference. Watch Brandon Bernstein here. Tim Richards had a good tune-up on this race car. I'm sure he was trying to run that number. Just unfortunately, Brandon was just a little bit late off the starting line. Scott Coletta made a very good run also and got the win.
Take a look at the incrementals. There's the margin of victory, and it's Brandon's first hole shot loss this year. Bill?
On a hole shot, you beat the #1 qualifier.
Man, I don't know what to say. That's what this is all about. You're up here on the hill. It's nice when Jimmo and my dad say, we may need some help. And what can I say? I'm glad I came through because it'd be pretty tough if I didn't. I just, I can't thank Mac Tools and Jesse James, Technicoat and Redline, everybody else. And hopefully we get an Oscar. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
And the help he's talking about, it keeps cousin Doug Coletta in second place in the points and keeps Brandon third. And he will have lane choice over Tony Schumacher, and that's going to be a big, big final. We've got to take another break. There's Robert Schwab. Can he keep the dream alive? Cruz Pedregon is the next potential victim. You're on board with Cruz Pedregon as he completes the burnout here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. He'll be in the right lane as Robert Schwab actually has lane choice, but he's had such good success over in the left lane, he decided to stay there.
Well, and we saw Tim Richards choose the left lane when he had lane choice, so he wasn't worried about it when he didn't have lane choice against Scott Coletta and put him over there, and he ran a 4.79. So we know there's nothing wrong with that left lane right now.
Let's put a period on Top Fuel, Bill.
Brandon, it was a year ago that you made your first appearance at a national event here after the Englishtown accident. I know you were hoping for more this weekend. Kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, we were. Budweiser Lucas Oil team did a great job. The driver just let him down today. You know, around before we got lucky, and Tim pulled it through. And you know, I don't know what the lights were on that run, but I thought I left, you know, right there with him, but obviously it wasn't. So you know, hey, that's okay. We got, you know, next race next week, and you know, we'll try and get this Budweiser Lucas Oil car in the winner's circle then. That's all we can do.
And remember, let's not lose sight of the fact, theoretically, he's still a rookie.
Take a look at the ladder. We'll show you the matchups real quick. Is Schwab, we told you, has the lane choice, and TJ over Phil Burkhardt. Dave Reef.
Marty quickly talking with Robert Schwab. Bill Worsham threw up the door, said, what do you need? Guys said, we need nothing. We're okay. We got plenty of time. Well, that was what bit them time. But Chris Pedregon was in the same boat. They were late up to the line.
And Robert already went in and stayed. No, is he real late? He's going to need help. The dream is over of taking home his first win, but he has nothing to be ashamed of. Cruz in a big hole shot. 5:54 to the quicker 5:39. And whoa. Let's take a look. Did Cruz have problems getting stopped again?
Boy, it sounded like he went in the sand, but he did an excellent job there. Backpedaling the car sounded like about 3 times to get that thing to the other end. And then as he tries to... Robert Schwab was just dead late. I think he had some nerves there because he went up there, put both stage lights on. I don't think that was intentional to try to throw Cruz off or anything. I think that was a mistake. Probably threw Robert off a little bit. He has cylinder out the head of the throttle, but he still had enough car to beat Cruz Pedregon had he been able to leave on time.
And we were listening to Cruz, and we heard him bouncing the tires. And yeah, the chute is late again, and it didn't come out the last round. And here it is again, and he is turning it sideways to get it stopped before he goes into the sand. So they have definitely got a problem with that parachute release that they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, but Cruz is one of the best guys. I've seen him, you know, lose a chute at a number of tracks and be able to get the thing stopped. He's very good at being able to do that, but he probably flat spotted those tires a little bit on that run.
All right, let's tell you about next week, because we head to Seattle, and then we'll have qualifying for you at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2 Saturday night. Sunday at 11:30 a.m. It'll be NHRA Today, and final eliminations, 3 hours, 8 o'clock Eastern, all of it on ESPN2. And for more, just log on to ESPN.com. Burnout for Tommy Johnson Jr., and there is Phil Burkhardt side by side. Let's check in again with Bill.
Cruz, one of the most bizarre weekends I've ever spent up here in Denver. I know the same for you. The car almost didn't stop. You just shouted to your crew. What?
Well, we had trouble getting up there, but we're just fumbling around here, but we're winning. That's the key. Vance Auto Parts put a lot of faith in me, and I was telling them I'm a winner. But I haven't shown it lately, but I think we're starting to come together. I really feel like you know, we're coming together. We're getting a little lucky here and there, but that's what it takes. You got to hang in there and keep charging. And but I want to I always have to thank the sponsors, Pure Light and everybody, because without them, I'd be in the booth still, next to Mike Dunn.
He yelled to his crew to get out of the car. You better get these bleeping parachutes fixed.
Did he just take my job? Because he's going to be sitting next to you?
Be a cruiser.
Hey, there we go. Hey, that's the first final Cruz is going to this year, and congratulations to them. The last time he was in a final was Maple Grove of last year. Now, Tommy Johnson looking to go to, well, his first final since Chicago of 2003. Standing in his way is Phil Burkhardt.
Phil Burkhardt, he's a tough customer. He's a very good driver, very consistent, knows how to backpedal the car if he gets in a situation where he needs that. Tommy Johnson, very good too. This is a good matchup.
Good drag race. And Phil Burkhardt, 5.18 seconds to 296 miles an hour, is going to his second final of the year. And remember, the last time he went to the final was Las Vegas, and he won that one.
Wow, Tommy Johnson had 0.04 of a second advantage off the starting line. Then the car went into tire shake, and he backpedaled, did a good job to get it to recover. But unfortunately for him, Phil Burkhardt was in the other lane with that Chris Cunningham, Mark Denner tune-up, just running straight down the middle of the lane to a 5.18.
And there is Phil climbing out from the cockpit. And let's check in now with Dave Reef.
Not a tremendously happy driver. Pretty happy car owner, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll tell you what, we faltered pretty bad today, you know, and Phil, Mark, Chris, entire Checker Trucks, Craig, and team, they pulled it together. That 5.18 with a 0, that's a great run out there. You know, they've been spinning all day long, and probably gotten some tune-up numbers we've never seen before, you know, with this race team. In the history, we've been back 5 years in our books. I cannot find backing something down this far, but it ran the number, Checker Trucks, Craig, and the Monte Carlo staying hooked up, and excited about this final. Yeah, it's too bad about Robert Schwab. He did a great job this weekend. I wish him luck in the future.
Not going to hurt him in the points today, though.
All right, let's take a look. And the lane choice will go to Phil Burkhardt in the final because of the 5:18. Let's go back to Bill.
Well, Nitro Phil, she didn't shake that time, did she?
No, it was nice and clean, my guys. All the Checker, Shucks, and Craig and people out here, I appreciate it. Worsham, thanks, DJ. And, you know, I mean, it was smooth, it was clean. I was ready for it to do something. It's done everything, something on every run so far today. But, you know, the guys had it set up perfectly. It just went right down through there.
He needs one more like that.
And we get one more look at the run from high above. We've got to take commercial break. They'll head back to the pits. We'll head for Pro Stock semifinals when we return to Bandamere. It has been a wild day of NHRA Powerade drag racing here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. If you're just tuning in, we're glad you're with us, but boy, you have missed a lot. I'm Marty Reed, along with Mike Dunn, Bill Stevens, Dave Brief, and Parker Johnson. We're in semifinals of Pro Stock, and here are the matchups as Greg Anderson has lane choice over his teammate Jason Line, and Larry Morgan has lane choice over Kurt Johnson. That's the one we're going to focus on first. And you made a very good observation about that Mopar car.
Well, you know, not only is it Dodge versus Chevy, it's also Mopar versus AC Delco. And the previous round, Larry Morgan took out the GM performance parts. Remember, this is a Mopar race. If Larry Morgan can win this round, the Mopar brass are going to be ecstatic. He will have done just about everything he can. If just winning the race would just be icing on the cake if he can win the final round. But this is a very important round for Larry Morgan right now.
We found out in Funny Car, only one member of the top 10 was in the semifinals. In Pro Stock, the top 4 in points are all here. Here we go. Guess what? Larry Morgan is going to please the Mopar brass. 7.20 seconds. There's Bob Glidden giving him the numbers. Kurt runs 7:21. And speaking of Mopar, on Thursday night in Golden, Colorado, Mopar had their big block party to kick off the Mopar Mile High Nationals. Fans had a chance to get up close with some of the racers and get some autographs. On hand were Mopar drivers, including Whit Bazemore, Gary Scelzi, Larry Morgan, and Alan Johnson. And live music capped the night off in downtown Golden. So now we get ready for Greg Anderson and Jason Line. And this team is guaranteed of going to its 12th final in 13 races. Dave Reef.
Looking forward to Pro Stock Bike. Big matchup. Andrew Hines on the Harley-Davidson. Been dominating once again here. But in his way now stands Craig Treble, a guy who's had a heck of a weekend. They've made 3 motor changes, one before each of the 2 qualifying sessions, one very early this morning before first round. They heard a noise in the engine, but so far so good. They've got lane choice. And with Craig doing some great driving at the starting line, they've got a shot to knock the Harley off.
That is still to come. And right now, you're on board with Greg Anderson, the points dominator.
He goes right in and stays.
His lead right now, well, if he wins this round, it goes up to 436 points over Kurt Johnson, who just got beat.
Is that amazing? And he just goes out and brings out a new car, figures out what the heck, you know.
Yeah, and the old car, which won 9 races, is over in the left lane.
Yeah, here you go, kid. Take this one. I don't want to hear you complain about it because we know it's good.
Yeah, it may not fit real well, but it runs real well. Almost dead even off the line. The win light to Greg Anderson. Look at these numbers. What a performance. 7.184 to a 7.189. That is spectacular. Take a look. There's the photo finish. About a fender. The combination of the starting line and the finish line right there. And we'll check in with Bill.
What a weekend at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. Larry Morgan, Darrell Alderman leaves the team. Mike Corvo, Alan Johnson didn't qualify. And look at you going to the final.
Hey, you know, Mopar, what can I say? This is their race. We want to win this race. Matco, Tools, Gates. Without those guys, we wouldn't be here. Schumacher, all the guys to shop. Bob Glidden. I mean, what can I say? Paul Yates, Doug Culver, everybody here that's worked on this team. I mean, this is all for them and Mopar as well. This is their race. We sure like to win this thing.
Don't forget Larry Morgan.
This guy.
Yeah, he beat Kurt on a hole shot.
All right, here's the matchup, and the lane choice by 2/100ths of a second is going to go to Greg Anderson in the Pro Stock Final. First time he's ever gone to a final here on the mountain. And work continues back in the Top Fuel pits. We've got bikes when we return to Bandamere. Back here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals Pro Stock Bike, there's Angel Savoy taking a little video of teammate Antron Brown. Here is the ladder, as it will be Craig Treble and Sean Gann with the lane choice. And it's Sean choosing the right lane in this first matchup with the army of one that is left, Antron Brown.
And I think Antron's crew chief, Mark Pizer, is okay with that choice of lane with Sean Gann, because we heard him talk about the rollout being shorter. And what that means is when they stage those bikes, there's usually about 11 inches of rollout, but he seems to think it's a little bit shorter in the right-hand lane, which makes it easier to red light.
And guess what? Antron goes red in the left lane. And I think that's number 8. And Sean only runs a 767. Only. It's hard to do up here on the mountain. Antron ran 772. There's Don Schumacher, not thrilled about the red light. But Sean Gann is going to his 3rd final of the year. Parker?
In the Top Fuel pits of Scott Coletta, they've been back 10 minutes. Crew chief Jim Oberhofer, tell us what they've done.
Well, right now I got my brother John over there packing the chutes, and I got Ron Tobler here helping the guys on the back half of the car check these big Goodyears. And rest of the guys, as you can see, we got controlled chaos going on here. Got about 30 guys, and they're going through the engine and clutch. And then we're hoping that we keep Connie away from the car a whole lot so we don't do something stupid.
You've been doing this a long time. Are you still impressed at what happens?
Oh, yeah, I love this stuff. I hope I can be like Connie someday, be 66 years old and be like a little kid when you're around these things. It's great. I love this stuff.
We're all little kids, Marty.
I love it. Jim, he's always trying to keep Connie away from it when they get to this stage. Let's get ready now for Craig Treble and Andrew Hines. Treble, of course, the runner-up at St. Louis. Also back at Englishtown, and that event he was runner-up to the guy who was over in the right-hand lane, Andrew.
St. Louis, he lost the final on a hole shot, but he's been looking much better on the tree today. He's going to need that, obviously, for this run.
And our 9th red light, and it's the Harley that throws it away. Oh, and what a break. Uh-oh, fire. And this is not good on a Pro Stock bike. You can see Craig is trying to get the motor shut off, get his foot from out of there. I'm sure he is feeling the heat right now on that left foot. The fire appears to have extinguished when he successfully killed the motor. But wow.
That was unbelievable. Looked like a funny car going down through there, the way that thing erupted. Like you said, I've never seen anything like that. Big break for Craig Treble, obviously. I mean, the race was given to him by Andrew Hines, and he needed it because look at that thing erupt. It broke well before the finish line, and then just as he crossed the finish line, that thing was burning pretty good. Obviously, he had to put his foot up there because I guarantee he was definitely feeling some heat.
Take a look at the super slow-mo of Andrew Hines, and you can just see him going through. And then the camera sort of follows Craig right there. And what's really dangerous here is obviously the oil getting onto the slick, and with only 2 wheels, you're going down if that happens. So a great job by Craig Treble.
Craig Treble, already one of the strangest days we've ever had in drag racing, and that was the icing on the cake, a Pro Stock motorcycle fire.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? I looked down, I was getting a hot foot going down the track in the shutdown, and man, something was burning. I looked down, I saw this big old ball of fire. But hey, you know what? These old Simpson boots, they hung in there pretty good. Hey, guys, down there in Scottsdale, Dino, sorry about the paint job. It's whacked you pretty good. We'll fix her up. But hey, this day has been insane. I have been using my Matco tools all weekend long. We changed 3 motors. We had a problem with the transmission last pass. Had the oil pan off. The guys over at the Vance and Hines guys, the guys with Harley shirts came over to my trailer, got the bike going down the track again. We had a little bit of transmission glitch, so now we have a huge glitch because there's like cranking rods and stuff all wadded up. So
can you fix it?
We're gonna go change another motor. I'll talk to you all later. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to be going for number 4 in the motor department, and it will be Sean Gann with the lane choice. He's number 2 in the points and can close some ground on Andrew Hines now that Andrew is out of here. Stay with us. We'll be back with more from the Mopar Mile High National. We're back here, getting ready for the finals of the Mopar Mile High Nationals. And in Pro Stock Bike, the big question was what was going to happen after the semifinals when Craig Treble wins the round courtesy of an Andrew Hines red light and then catches on fire, giving himself a hot foot. And somehow he keeps the bike on 2 wheels. Well, back in the pits, 45 minutes was all these guys had to do a turnaround. There you see Gino Scali, everybody from the Byron Hines, the Vance and Hines Screaming Eagles team. About 5 or 6 teams came over to help. Matt Hines included, the 3-time champion. And there is Craig, and believe it or not, with 5 minutes to spare, these guys were continuing, and here they go. They started up. So congratulations to the team. And then here we are down on the starting line getting ready for the Pro Stock Bike Final. Let's check our Castrol startup of the day. Best reaction times in Pro Stock. It belongs to Jim Yates. Andrew Hines in the bikes. Doug Coletta in Top Fuel. Jeff Arend in Funny Car. The irony there is not one of them is around for the final. And there is Sean Gann as he's trying to go for his 2nd win this year. Treble trying to go for his 1st. Let's get more with Dave.
Marty, you talked about the huge thrash down there. It was a busted crank that got as many as 15 different players and over half the qualified field drivers up there helping out. But I understand we have a problem at starting line with Craig, maybe.
Looks like there may be some fluid. Maybe one of the fittings did not get tightened enough.
Yeah, Marty, it looks like it's dripping fluid off the bottom of the bike, but they've given them the okay to go ahead and stage it anyway.
Be interesting to see if any of it gets underneath the tire. Here we go. They're going to send them. Sean Gann was near perfect at the starting line and then runs 7.65 seconds to take the win, and that is going to pick up additional 40 points. And he's cut Andrew's lead to 126. Parker.
One of the hardest working men today in NHRA, Mike Stevens, 4 engine changes. We saw some fluid at the start. What happened?
Oh, I think all that was just residual from the blow up on the semifinal pass. And Matt Cotul Suzuki was running good today. You know, it's been a hell of a day. We were thrashing so hard, we just need to get everything cleaned out of the belly pan underneath, and some splashed out. I think that's all it was.
The fact they got that bike to the start line for the finals, Marty, that's a victory in itself.
And there's Sean Gann at the far end. Bill?
Can you repeat that, please?
Come on now. You know that stuff's hard to do, man.
Hey, Sean, you know what? When we started the season off, it looked like the Harleys were going to dominate, but in the last 2 races, the Suzuki gang has really come on, and you did it today.
Well, Mac Toes is showing me a fine display of what they can do to help me, and all I said is I needed some help with some of the other things that was going on, and I'm telling you, I just got to thank God and Technicoat Company, my dad. When he gets up here, it's going to be live.
Let's go to Dave.
One of the greatest displays, Craig Treble, of sportsmanship I've ever seen between rounds.
Hey, you know what? I'm a Vance and Hines guy. I'm a Magical Tools guy. And those are 2 of the best companies a guy could ever be associated with in drag racing, as far as I'm concerned. My boss is standing right here. Vance and Hines guys, if not one, there was probably 10 of those guys in my pits helping us thrash. We changed 4 motors this weekend. We fixed the transmission. We've been using those Matco tools this weekend, and you know, our distributors, they worked their butts off, and you know, we paid them back for one this weekend. We didn't quite get that last round win that we wanted, but hey, we're getting these valuable Powerade points. We got the old 25th anniversary bike back out here. We're going rounds, and that's 3 finals in a row. We'll take it.
That's right. It is 3 in a row as we get ready now for Pro Stock. And there's Greg Anderson's road to the final as he'll be over in the right lane. Larry Morgan will be over in the left lane. And of course, this is one of 4 tracks where Greg has not collected a win. In fact, until today, it never made it out of 2nd round. There's Larry's road to the final. He's looking to go to the winner's circle for the first time since 2 years ago at Sonoma. Parker.
Morgan's won 2 Mopar-sponsored events before, but both times behind the wheel of an Oldsmobile. He told me if he wins this event today for Mopar, it would be as big, if not bigger, than winning the U.S. Nationals.
There is Greg Anderson's wife, Kim. And Greg looking for win number 10 of the year. We're at round 13. Advantage Anderson. Greg Anderson has just tied placed on the all-time win list with number 26. And he does it again, and you can mark off one more track where he's never won. It's now down to 3.
Wow. I mean, Larry Morgan needed to get the whole shot off the starting line, but when Greg Anderson cuts an 0.22 light, that's hard to do. Both cars ran excellent times. Neither one has anything to be ashamed of right here. I mean, Larry Morgan, 7:19, he was right there. If he could have got a slight advantage off the starting line, he could have possibly won it, but Greg Anderson has been on his game all day long.
Take a look at the points. 456 over second place Kurt Johnson. It's 20 per round, folks. Let's go to Bill.
Greg Anderson, the assault continues, and I got to ask you this. Ever since you got here this weekend, I have sensed in you a real commitment to win the race. There was something special up here, wasn't there?
Absolutely. This mountain has escaped me. It's absolutely frustrated me for all these years. Just wanted to get off this mountain every year we come here. We conquered the mountain this year. Not only that, we put Summit Racing Equipment at the top of the drag race chart where they belong. So happy to start the relationship like this. Absolutely a great feeling, and this team's going to be awesome for a long time to come. A lot of people to thank. Mac Tools, Pontiac. That Pontiac just crushed that Mopar in the Mopar Nationals Finals.
One of the most astounding strings performance we've seen in this category in a long time.
The march to history continues for Greg Anderson. When we continue, it'll be time for Funny Car and Top Fuel Finals here at Mopar Mile High Nationals. Well, it's time for the Nitro Finals here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals, round 13 of the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. Who is going to take home the Wally? And Top Fuel will be Scott Coletta, or will it be Tony Schumacher? And in Funny Car, Phil Burkhart's going to try and deny Cruz Pedregon his 23rd Wally of his career. And that's where we find ourselves right now. The body on the Advanced Auto Parts Monte Carlo and Cruz Pedregon. And there's Cruz's road to the final.
We've talked about how tricky the track conditions have been today. Right now, I think it's the best we've seen. I mean, it's cooled off. We've got some cloud cover. A little bit better than what we saw the first round. Tommy Johnson ran a 5.13 in the first round. I think you'd be able to run a 5.0 in this final round, but boy, you got to really be careful still.
These two have met in the first round of the last two races, and Cruz has won both those matchups. Phil has a little revenge on his mind right now. Tire smoke for Cruz. And Phil Burkhart takes home his second win this year and third of his career. He runs 5.33 seconds at 289 miles an hour. And the Checker Shucks Cragen team is celebrating.
Well, I'll tell you, Phil Burkhart, he went in very deep, but you look, he had a cylinder out as soon as he hit the throttle, which slowed considerably. Cruz Pedregon was out there ahead, but Phil Burkhart drove by for the win.
There's Phil getting out. You could hear him hooping and hollering. Take a look in super slow-mo.
Watch over here. You're going to see the cylinder go out as soon as he hits the throttle. Really took away a lot of horsepower right there. But the good news was he didn't smoke the tires, unlike Cruz Pedregon, who at that point was probably a little bit ahead, but then started hazing the tire, which allowed Phil Burkhart to drive around right into the winner's circle.
Let's go on board with Cruz. Oh, man, does that shake get violent. And that's what it feels like, it looks like when you're on. Burnouts now for the final race of the 2004 Mopar Mile High Nationals. Tony Schumacher will be in the left lane. Scott Coletta over in the right. The last time these guys met in a final round in Top Fuel was 1999. And Tony won that matchup.
Well, both these drivers, I mean, you got to rate Scott Coletta slight edge. He's had the numbers, but both teams have improved on each round of racing with their lap time. So can't count Alan Johnson out. He's definitely struggled here. He knows they've kind of gotten a couple lucky breaks to be in the final round, but I mean, you got Alan Johnson, Tony Schumacher, excellent driver, excellent crew chief. But I'll tell you what, Scott Coletta's looking awfully good right now.
Parker?
Marty, we've talked about the effect altitude has had on these race cars all weekend long, but I asked Scott Coletta's crew chief, Jim Oberhofer, how the altitude has affected he and his crew, and he said after turning this car around 4 times today, he and his team are absolutely exhausted, and these guys are bad.
And this is an important round because obviously Tony Schumacher has retaken the points lead. Scott can help his cousin Doug. He can keep the margin at 28. If Tony wins this round, He picks up another 20 points, opens the gap to 48. Tony Schumacher has never won 5 races in a single season. He's got 4 already this year. Here we go. What a great drag race. And number 5 is going to have to wait for Tony Schumacher. Scott Coletta, 4.74 seconds, picks up his first win of the year, his 15th in Top Fuel, which now ties him with the man he just beat. He coasts the car on out, and I guarantee you he won't be in that cockpit long. Go ahead.
Wow, Marty, that was a well-deserved win. Team Coletta, Scott Coletta, improved on every single run, and they saved the best for last. A 4.74, but give credit to Alan Johnson and Tony Schumacher. Tony was first off the line, ran a good number, but Scott Coletta was able to drive around at the other end for the win. Great job.
His first win in Top Fuel since 1997 at Topeka. Scott Coletta helps Cousin Doug. Bill?
Scott Coletta, it has taken almost a year for you to be standing here after coming back to the sport. I know this is a special day for you. Tony Schumacher with a smile and a handshake.
I appreciate it. What can I say? You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad, Mac Tools, everybody else that helps us. Technico, Red Line Oil. I can't remember everybody else, you know. Come through this deal and only have really get down the track one time qualifying. It was a nail biter all weekend, and my family's here, so what more could I ask for?
Let's go to Dave.
Phil Burkhardt, you're still plenty pumped up about your 3rd win of your career.
Absolutely. You know, the Checker, Shucks, and Creighton guys got it done today. You know, we all work together as a team and make this thing happen. You know, it's been since Las Vegas. You know, last time I waited 5 years, and I thought that was a long time. You know, but I can't do it with all the guys, the Worshams especially. They're the reason I'm here. Checker, Shucks, and Creighton puts the whole team out here, and I can't thank everybody enough, but there are a few people that make this all happen to the most part. Mark Denner and Chris Cunningham that tuned this car, they're the best. Those names right there are going to be the household crew chief names of the future, and I just hope to be a part of them. And another thing that I want to add, and I want to really dedicate this win to, is everybody's friend out here, Darrell Russell. We definitely thought a lot about him this weekend and miss him, and we'll never forget him.
Amen.
Well said, Phil. Take a look at the Top Fuel points because the lead has changed, but boy, look how tight it is between the top 3. And Scott, with the win, moves ahead of Larry Dixon into 4th place in the Top Fuel point standings. We'll wrap things up from here in Denver. When we return, the celebration is just beginning.
I got to get this on our harness on. Go ahead.
And time now for our friend Winner's Circle, and our tribute goes to Scott Coletta, Phil Burkhardt, Greg Anderson, and Sean Gann. Let's go to Bill at the far end.
Tony Schumacher, you lost the race, but you leave with a point lead.
Yeah, that's important to, you know, really Pomona at the end of the year is when it's real important to lead with the point lead. They really deserved it. It was a great race. They were running good all day. We really were struggling. We were getting down the track ahead of the other car. We knew what we were doing there, but we were down to run. You know, we come in with all these new tires, and we had that fuel leak in the first qualifying run. We were down to run. So, but they deserved it. They beat us fair and square. It was an outstanding race for them. Plus, I didn't want my price for my West Coast chopper to get out of control. It was important that he got the job done there. I don't know how close it was, but he run a 70-something on race day, and that was just an outstanding run. And we picked it up, too. So we ran an 80. We go on the Western Swing and have a good time.
And before we say so long, there's our schedule for next week. Saturday qualifying at 7 Eastern on ESPN2. NHRA Today at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. And the finals on Sunday at 8 Eastern. The World Series of Poker is coming up next. For Mike Dunn, Bill Stevens, Dave Reef, and Parker Johnstone, I'm Marty Reed. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Mopar Mile High Nationals. We'll see you next week. Stop number 2 on the Western Swing.